So I'll introduce our first player from Team EG. He is a Terran named Puma. Darkforce Ultimate. And our other player is Alternate Darkforce. Oh, there's some claps. Local hero. Well, good luck, guys. Have fun fighting. And once again, I'm going to let Day9 and Kalaris take this away.
Thank you, Jarrett. Surprise! We're still here. I'm Day9.
And I'm Kalaris. And we are going to be moving on to another TVZ. So we're having a TVZ day today. It's nice to get a lot of Terrans in, to be honest. We've had a lack of Terrans in previous tournaments, as really.
Yeah.
It's good.
But we're again going to get one of these critical matches coming out the gate where this is going to be, I believe, in the third open bracket group where we're going to be seeing Puma go up against Darkforce. And Puma has a lot of issues as of late, putting up big results on the table. Darkforce has put up some pretty notable ones as of late, but I mean, Puma really has a lot more pressure on him to perform really well in this match. And this was one of these matches where I still would put the favor on the foreigner player over the Korean.
Yeah, well, I mean, Darkforce, he's pretty darn good. He's, as we alluded to earlier in the day, he's slightly overshadowed in the German scene by the likes of the Sockers, the Hasus of the world.
Oh, yeah.
But Darkforce always ends up seeming to go really deep in the tournament runs that he ends up going to, and from there, it's always rather silently, just never really kind of gathering full pace in terms of the kind of publicity factor, I'm going to call it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those weird factors that I think a lot of players in Europe kind of struggle with, is that there's especially so many national-style tournaments happening right now that it's easy to kind of fall a little bit under the radar, even though your skill level is really tip-top. But Darkforce managed to take out Alive, most notably in NASL Season 1. He's had a ton of really big online results recently, and I think that that's really started to give people a lot more credit where it's due.
Yeah.
His style tends to be very Ling Muta Baneling oriented in this matchup. Kind of an older school style. Has been playing around some with the more standard Ling Infestor play, but he's going up against Puma, who I would say is one of the more standard looking Terrans. I mean, especially his TVZ as of late hasn't looked crazy in any one direction.
It's been difficult for the Terrans to really adapt. It's been, and I think Puma may have suffered from that a little bit, but I mean, he does play a very, very standard style. There's a lot of aggression coming out from him at times, from time to time, but there's no reason you can't just sit back and relax and chill out. Now, as you can see here, once again, Darkforce. Again, he's a pretty much a veteran of the German scene, because you know we see him at a lot of EPS Cups. He's always able to perform very, very well, but again, as we said before, never really able to get to that top little ring there to be able to stand out from the crowd sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, Darkforce at the same time, I do think has some pretty key weaknesses in his early and mid-game play. I've especially been pained to cast a number of his games where a bunch of Hellions just walk up and kill off all his drones right at the outset. And it's one of these things that a lot of Zerg players are finding that if they get to the late game, they just... Actually, all they ever want to do is get to the late game. If I can just get to my Infestor Broodlord style force, I'm going to be really happy. But with all the crazy build orders that are coming out that are Hellion-based, I mean, we just saw the Hellion play out of Bomber in the last game. There's the early expand fast double gas where you go 2 factory and you're turning out 3 Blue Flame Hellions at a time. There's the fast Hellion drop plays that's literally the same structure as the build we saw last game, except a medevac instead of a Banshee. There's 1,000,001 early attacks that Terrans are starting to incorporate more and more and more of. And
it's really down to Terran to, in a series, mix that up and always kind of keep the Zerg guessing from there. And that is something that we do see a player like Puma do. He's not really one to fall too much into doing the same build again and again and again. Like, say, for example, his TVP, he will pretty much, in a best of 3, always have 3 separate games, unless, of course, he sees someone that's very weak to one particular build. But that's fallen out a little bit of style. But that's not this series. No, sorry.
I mean, I actually do want to note a little bit about what Puma has been doing lately, that he hasn't been adjusting in the way that all the other Terran players have. That's one thing I really want to see out of him. I mean, sure, maybe even something as bold as going to mech, maybe something as simple as just incorporating 1 or 2 more timing pushes. That, I think, is the big key that I want to see out of him to be able to start really taking some huge wins here. Because, I mean, even if he is able to get through Darkforce, it's still around one opponent. He has a pretty, unfortunately, tough bracket with Nesty in there. Sokka and Straylock, who both given him trouble in the past, are in there as well.
Yeah, and I just saw Nesty walk past, actually, in his lovely black shirt. As he is present and being able to boss things up eventually at some point. So I think we are going to go to a short break, guys.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hop into a brief break because we need to get Puma into this match. We have Darkforce, we have us casters. When we come back, hopefully we'll have Puma too.
Welcome back, guys. As we are, that was, when I said short break,
wow.
I meant a very short break.
We're going to go on a break. Hop back. Hello. We've immediately returned, and we actually don't have Puma. I guess I overpromised. I have Puma is
Sean,
nowhere
is
to be found. He doesn't even appear to be online, so.
We will hunt him down, though.
You know what we'll actually do? We'll actually talk until he just mysteriously shows up in our match.
Uh-oh.
MC making a cameo appearance. It's very difficult to.
Oh! Nicely done. Nicely done. Gotta love that Gangnam style. Don't, please.
You know, I honestly think that this is the most person unproved set that you know we've been on. That there's literally just glass. And this is actually safety glass because we're actually elevated. We don't roll off and accidentally kill ourselves before the match. Did you
happen to see the French well, maybe you didn't see the French broadcast of the WCS France Nationals?
I was watching a lot of it, actually, but apparently not the moment that you're about to share with me and everyone on stream.
Well, long story short, there was a similar booth set up like this, and there were so many trolls walking past. Just people with, like, V masks on and just,
oh, that's so badass.
Much.
A V for Vendetta mask? Well, let me just invite anyone who's going to be at Gamescom tomorrow to wear that. Not to do anything, but sit in that sort of austere, stern, unmoving way like they did in the final sequence.
I'm gonna get paranoid if that's the case.
That would be so cool.
It would be pretty cool, though, I must admit. Like a whole crowd of it. Like all 300 seats. Like
that would be great, man.
That'd be terrifying.
And it looks like we have located Puma. I've given him the invite, so hopefully he'll pop into the game at his earliest convenience.
And EG recently picking up Raid Call, so they have changed their tag. It's now EG Puma RC, standing for Raid Call as their title sponsor. So that explains that. I always end up pointing that out because for Mouse Sports, they have CC in their name now.
Yeah,
and that is card coaches. But even to this day, people are always, what does the CC mean? Yeah. I think it's an interesting way that a lot of teams are sort of helping do the branding for a lot of teams to help please sponsors and this sort of thing. I mean, sure, there's events like this where you can get numbers from that, you can get hits on the stream, but then when it's just hits on the actual name itself, it's announced every single time. I really like the cleverness of all the teams out there as of late. Very, very much so. So, it looks like Mr. Puma is potentially ready. Well, he's joined the game, and they're ready. Oh, my God, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to announce that we are going into game number 1 of match number 3, day number 1 of IEM's Gamescom. Once again, rubbing them hands together, day 9. A delicious treat coming up for us. First map is going to be on Ohana. How do you think the Zerg player should be opening on a map like this? Liking it. I think that, some just obviously hatch first. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. And then from there on, Darkforce is the kind of player that will like to play the macro game, but if he senses weakness in his opponent, I've seen him do it many a time, not only in weekly tournaments, but also in the WCS Germany Nationals against some of the Terrans there. For instance, Kras and Hero Marine, who is currently on Mouse. He will find that opening and flood in with around 16 Zerglings to do a lot of damage early on. Now, I don't know whether Puma is going to end up allowing that kind of hole to be exposed here. But if he plays like Bomber did in the first 1 or 2 games, then those holes might be apparent. But maybe not. We'll see. Well, introducing our players starting in the top right corner, top left corner. I can't believe. That's fine. I'm left-right colorblind. That's in the top left corner, it is going to be EG's Puma. And down to the bottom right-hand corner. I was going to say left just in intentionally, but no, I'll leave it out. As for now, we will have the Blue Zerg ATN Darkforce. So, some more TVZ. We're seeing quite a bit of this. I think that by the end of this day, we're going to be absolute TVZ specialists, Mr. Darkforce. But then again, all the Zergs that we've been watching are really bringing their own brand of Zerg to these matchups.
Darkforce is going to be the most standard-looking Zerg of the mix. Definitely one of the few who's able to use the Mutalisk transitions properly, although we're seeing the importance of getting the Infestors out right away, more and more and more and more. Puma has a number of options available to him on this map. Most notably, I think it would be that Mech is quite stable on this map, just due to the narrow distance the map has from side to side, that you can cover enough space quite well. We're seeing players favor that meching style quite a lot on this map, but again, Puma's just not the sort of player that we see adjust to that sort of mixture. I would hope that we would see Puma at the very least do the standard Hellion Banshee play, because that is the most standard play that you can do while still being quite aggressive.
No, I entirely agree, and I mean, depending on whether or not Darkforce ends up building, say for example, some Sim City at the top of his natural ramp, which is something that we're seeing more and more Zergs do. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, of course, but just evolution chambers there to be able to make that gap all the more narrow is, I absolutely adore that. And on a map like Ohana, it can work really, really well because of the size of that ramp.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do think that the size of this ramp actually has a really interesting impact on the game, where there's a couple of early aggression tactics that don't work well at all, just due to the fact that it's low ground, high ground.
Yeah.
But also a number of early defenses that do work due to the narrowness of it.
And also the closeness to the expansion itself. Like, in comparison to, say, Daybreak, for example, which is not the best comparison, but the point is that the expansion is way further away from the ramp. So.
Well, and also even the distance here to this backdoor expansion, that it's difficult to construct something that will defend both these locations, ends up having a lot of cool impacts. And look at this, we're seeing Puma actually go for a 3 racks with a fast 2 gas. So he might be doing one of the more old school standard sorts of aggressions, like going for the fast medevac drop, or one of the more new school ones where you go for fast combat shield. Regardless, excellent micro by Puma.
Very, very much so. I was just about to comment. You stole my thought. Day9 has got him. I mean, how can you ignore how good that control was? Saving every single Marine, not losing a single one. As for now, just going to pumping out those Marines as quickly as possible. Tech Lab already going down here to be able to start dem upgrades, and for now banking up that gas to, again, I would assume, transfer himself into that standard Marine tank play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hovering over this Tech Lab to, yes, there it is, the combat shield push. Actually, we'll be seeing a Marauder pop out of here shortly. I'm actually a little surprised to see that there are still 3 in each gas geyser. More commonly, you'll see it pop down to 2, and the Terran player will favor a little bit more long-term SCV play. But right now, Puma is stepping forward to try to get control of that watchtower, and Marine timings are something that a lot of Zergs struggle to figure out the right answers for. Look at this, Darkforce already making 12 Zerglings. There's no attack coming anytime soon, so these are wasted lanes.
Yep, really are. That could have been spent way better elsewhere. But for now, looks like Puma just checking around here, there, and there to see if there's any Zerglings or drones on the map, so he can expand whenever he wants to without it being instantaneously spotted, as well as, you know, potential Overlord kills that could be free there. And meanwhile, we just have Darkforce playing his standard game. Unit counting station right now, 38 drones to the 31 SCVs, and getting that creep going.
And there's this painful amount of Zerglings out, 17. And these are going to perform just horribly against these combat shield Marines. We see the Marauder popping out that's there to absorb any sort of small Baneling hit that could end up happening, but it's going to be out just a smidge late. The combat shield's actually already about to wrap up, and now we see Puma building the factory. It'll get synced up nicely with that stim.
I love the incorporation of the Banelings. It really does punish a Zerg if they're being lazy with their control. Sorry, Marauders. It really does punish them if they're being lazy with their control, because they soak so many Banelings up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially given the control we've seen out of Puma.
Yeah, exactly. So, for now, just completing that wall off, and he does have that factory on the way, along with the 3rd refinery here. Not taking that 4th one just yet, as Terrans nowadays, unless they transfer themselves into, you know, mid-late game, like a lot of starports for Raven play, which is not too common at the moment. They don't really have a big gas dump anywhere in many matchups. But
looks like Darkforce pauses the game and uses hashtag SEC to let us know.
So guys, go hashtag SEC on Twitter at Day9TV as well as at KyleRS. That'd be very, very handy for us. Maybe hashtag IEM as well. That'd be a good idea. But hashtag SEC is cool.
I mean, actually, while we're on this screen, we can just see a pretty simple summary of the game right now. 1-1 has been started by Darkforce. He's just now beginning his 2 extractors, so he's starting to consider stepping up to the layer tech sort of things. But this speed is quite late. We don't see any Zerglings in production. Perfectly stepped around by Puma. Puma is literally rounding out the rest of his composition, just getting up to the medevacs, getting the add-ons on all of his barracks, and there we are. The game has resumed.
Awesome stuff, fantastic, as we do have the GG go coming out of Puma here, so he's already forfeited, as he will, though, push down to this 3rd location. And let's see how much damage he's able to do, if anything, as we do have plenty of Zerglings there, but actually, the Baneling Nest is going to be a little bit late here at this point.
Oh, a really painful experience for Darkforce, losing all those creep tumors, and now his 3rd expansion is under huge fire. He's going to try to sweep around. He's trying to buy a little bit more time. 16 more Zerglings did just pop out, but oh, he misses the surround. The Queens now pop in, and Puma is perfectly able to continue kiting everything. And without much difficulty of control, we see that Puma is in an excellent position to finish off this hatch, or at the very least deal massive ling damage.
Yeah, wowie, wow at this control. He's just been so cost-effective with this, to be honest. Even not getting the hatchery, as you rightly pointed out. Just the extra lava being thrown in for the Zerglings is really annoying here for Darkforce.
Coming to the units lost tab, it's surprisingly even, but
yeah.
Can't emphasize enough how much I honestly think Darkforce lost in that attack.
Yeah. He did lose a lot. He did, indeed. Wait a minute. Oh, no, okay, that's an armory. I thought he was throwing down 3 engineering bays for a second. I got a bit skeptical. But no, only 2. Second engineering bay going down, lining up nicely here with the armory to be able to get that +1 armor out as well. And for now, centrifugal hooks on the way here for Darkforce to just bolster his defenses a little bit with that macro hatch along as well. So, and, oh, the infestation pit going down. So he's kind of leaning more towards what we were seeing from Bly in the mid-game, of that kind of Ling, Infester, Baneling to control a lot of the engagements.
Yeah, Darkforce, again, very much so one of the players who still has been using a good amount of that Ling, Baneling, Mutalist play.
Yeah.
Extremely uncommon as of late, but certainly can be used quite effectively. But now we see him trying to do the standard, or yes, the more standard, I suppose, Ling Infester play, but still his drone count has just been terribly low for the early part of the game, and now he's trying to be torn between rebuilding those drones or following up with more Zerglings because he doesn't know if a push is coming, and with this excellently placed Overlord, Darkforce is going to see all of it.
It's interesting to see how similar the styles are of Puma and Bomber, but Puma begins that drop aggression a little bit more before when we see Bomber going for it. So now he's going to be able to clear up so many creep tumors once again and start powering away at this 3rd, but there's a lot of Lings and Banelings there.
Oh, an excellent surround by Darkforce. A really excellent surround by Darkforce is actually just going to kill all the Marines outright. Puma doesn't lift in time, and literally, that is exactly what Darkforce needed. He needed some sort of justification for having all these units lying around instead of drones, and he got it. He killed off a lot of those units, prevented the drop, aggression. Now we're seeing another drop come out from Puma, but nothing else coordinating with it, just a drop for the sake of dropping.
Yeah, and a Ling did spot that. Again, it depends on whether Darkforce actually checked that location of his minimap whilst he was seeing, and another Ling actually spots this drop coming out here. So he's going to be able to notice that as the Viking does clear up on Overlord down to the south, and he's continuing to clear up all of this creep constantly, which is really, really nicely done by Puma. And again, on Ohana, it's so important because of how easy it is to get that creep going and how easy it is to establish map control from there.
Oh gosh, Darkforce just now building all the necessary defensive structures as the drop is falling. Pulls all the drones, a little bit of a panic reaction there by Darkforce, desperately trying to make sure he takes no damage, but at the same time there's another drop going on. Darkforce doing a decent job managing everything. Does take down the medevac drop in his main, but has to answer to this drop down in the bottom left.
Does indeed, as this medevac drop could do a little bit of damage. Not many Lings here to be able to reinforce against this, and they're all streaming in single file, but we'll be able to fend that away for now. But interestingly, that drop in the main only killed 2 workers despite pulling them off to go for the offensive.
Wow.
I was really surprised.
I mean, honestly, these drops are not really succeeding in doing direct damage, and in fact are costing quite a lot of resources for Terran. But in all truth, the fact that this creep spread has been that successfully denied is just incredible, especially along this left side. There's nothing for Zerg to be able to spot if there's an attack coming. Even right now, units could literally just waltz straight for this left expansion, and that is just so key. And now Puma's starting to move forward with the big force. 7 infestors are in production but haven't even hatched yet.
Yeah, as we do have Puma going to be moving out, clearing out the creep here as he goes, which is always very nice as well. And again, if this had been left to its own devices, and any other Zerg, hold that thought, as we do have the Banelings connecting the few of the Marines on there. Zerglings trying to run back to be able to deal with the tanks as well, and they will get good surface area on them.
Oh my gosh,
wow.
Darkforce dealt with that with such incredible ease, had almost no Banelings at all, but what Banelings he did have connected absolutely perfectly with those Marines, and now all of a sudden Darkforce is getting his 3-3 upgrades. Puma's the one behind on upgrades. Still no real creep spread for Darkforce, meaning he's going to be on defense for about another 3 or 4 minutes until his creep can start to regather together.
Yeah, and again, as I said, if Darkforce had been left to his devices with this creep, it would be knocking on the door of Puma right now. There's no doubt about it. It would be there, and from there as a Terran, there's not only the disadvantage in a physical way, but there's the psychological advantage that your opponent gains. Of like, wow, my opponent can see the whole map just with creep.
Yeah, that's just so disheartening knowing you have to siege up that far back.
Yeah.
Really odd attack coming up by Puma. This is going to get just completely smashed by this force of Dark Force. He easily throws down 1, maybe 2 fungal growths and just picks it off. And this is the weirdness that I've been seeing out of Puma so much lately. These kinds of attacks that are just going to have such a huge loss rate coming out. He's lost every single one of his medevacs.
Nope, entirely right, as Darkforce for now does have that Ultralisk cavern on the way, 36 more Lings, he's going to be able to pick off some Infestors.
Oh my
here.
god, what Darkforce not answering, even has enough energy for a fungal growth, but doesn't end up spending it. Darkforce loses a surprising amount of units there, but again, a small number of Zerglings will be able to clean up absolutely everything. Puma continuing to just rally down in the center of the map, and this is exactly what Darkforce would want in this position.
Yeah, with Darkforce going up to 3-3 as well as Stream Advance in just a bit, and Ultralisk in production right now. He constantly pushes forward with these Banelings and Zerglings, cutting off all the reinforcements, all the tanks and medevacs coming along here, and the tanks just get completely sacrificed to these Zerglings and Banelings. And right now, with Darkforce having this transition going, Puma is looking in a really, really bad spot.
Ordinarily, the Zerg player is struggling to take either this left or right expansion, and the Terran is just throwing medevacs at one, attack forces at the other, and it's so impossible to keep up either of them as Zerg. But we're seeing Puma literally just have a slow, small rally of units that are just getting completely destroyed.
It's like a conveyor belt. Like, just send them in, it's fine, process them. Zerglings there with their little aprons on to be able to deal with that. So for now, Puma going to go for another drop here in the main. There are Spore Crawlers, though, to be able to deflect that. And actually, really nice move there by Puma to be able to kind of deflect that location. And he actually finds a way to get it. Nicely done.
Yeah, he does manage to get the drop in the main. I'm thinking Darkforce will be able to get his Zerglings back in time, but looks like I am sorely mistaken. I think Darkforce was expecting the dropship to just turn around and go home, and the Ultralisk Cavern gets targeted instantly and falls down, and all of a sudden the Marines are in pretty decent position to just pull back, retreat, comfortably start poking around.
I like that. I really do. Like, again, dealing with your opponent's tech, very, very nice. Darkforce does have 4 Ultralisks out, and he will be able to shut down another drop there with the Zerglings and Banelings. But for now, just establishing even more defense and pushing out to the middle of the map here with these Ultralisks, Zerglings, and Banelings to be able to continue aggression if he wants to. But right now, I think he feels comfortable going up against 3-base Puma. I think he has a Ling spotting a 4th, or any 4th even. Yeah. So from there, he just wants to maybe play a bit of a suffocating game.
I mean, continued drop attempts by Puma, trying to nab anything that he can, but really just trying to keep this huge Darkforce army at bay. I mean, the most general look for Terrans in this matchup nowadays is, I'm going to get 3 bases, I'm going to try to attack you as much as possible, and then eventually I'll get around to getting a 4th base. But we're seeing the exact opposite of that from Puma, where he's kind of having to stay defensive on 3 base and then build up an army and use it to defend his 4th. It's not how you want your Terran play to go. And now Puma is again trying to do another drop, coupled with this one at the bottom left. But Darkforce has enough funds to just go mass spine spore all crazy like.
Pretty darn good, as he does add on the Neural Parasite as well as Chitinous Plate and getting those upgrades out that are very, very vital indeed. Interestingly enough, he's going for ranged weapons level 2. I can't help but feel that that's just a misclick.
No, this is nice for your infested Terrans to be able to bolster those up, but
yeah,
not really anything else for that. This is another way of Darkforce saying, I am convinced that I am at a lead. Medevac easily slips by, but will run into yet more Spore Crawlers from Darkforce.
Yeah, actually, no, now that I think about it, he already has 3-3, so it's not a misclick at all.
Oh, a full Medevac falls down.
Ouch.
And there's another double drop by Puma in the back.
Ooh, going to be able to potentially take out the spawning pool as well as the Baneling nest here, unless the reinforcements come too quickly. He actually decides to focus down the Ultralisk Cavern as well, and he gets it before Chitinous Blazing finishes. Really nicely done there, and the Marines not doing too much else.
I mean, this is kind of the lucky break that you always dream of as Terran. Well, Puma, of course, misclicking something and sending this Medevac to all sorts of odd places around the map, and now Puma moving forward with a nice little army mixture there. I mean, the spawning pool, a little bit low on health, but Darkforce just doing some big flubs here. I mean, just leaving these Medevacs in his main base.
I like how, despite having his creep shut down initially, he never gave up on going for it. He's always getting extra creep out on the map. He had 3 queens out there, being very active about that, and he can try and continue to spread that if he wants to. But for now, Darkforce has allowed Puma to be able to establish this 4th base, and Puma right now has a very, very nice army.
Yeah, Puma's essentially just continued to drop in order to buy himself more time, and has, I guess, what I'd call a one-shot army. There's really no other way to describe it. He's building 43 more Banelings, and Darkforce needs to keep his eye on his army.
Needs those Ultralisks alive. One does fall, and now he's going to go for the straight sweep.
Yuck. The opposite of how you want your army to engage. I mean, again, Puma has basically one shot at this and no more. 7 Marauders, 16 Marines, and 13 tanks. With both of his army in those tank counts, and Darkforce looks like he's trying to do some small counterattacks. Not exactly necessary. There's still this nice little Medevac hanging out in the main base, completely surrounded by Spore Crawlers.
Meanwhile, we have a huge engagement as the Banelings do roll in. A few Fungals go down on this bio, but not really being able to connect with those Banelings in the end, as the tanks were just able to focus them down quite nicely there. But with opening up that gap at the natural, I feel that that's really useful for Darkforce to eventually, if he wants to go for like link counterattacks into the main to start like nibbling away at the infrastructure and things. I think that's pretty cool. But other than that, we do still have the Ultralisk Cavern once again on the way. Double Spire was thrown down, and he's getting that Greater Spire out as well.
Holy freaking infestors. Darkforce has so many, 16 on the map. The tank count is so high that I actually think Darkforce is going to start to have problems doing these engagements. Nice flood of beach balls trying to absorb a bunch of damage. Zergling to rush in, get the perfect plant on all those tanks. Tank count plummets down to 4 and will soon be at 0 at the front line. Only 1 tank remains behind. Darkforce has successfully thwarted a tank-based attack at the front. Few more Fungals will, of course, thwart the small Marine Marauder crew as well.
And just lands one of those Fungals. Now, there's a few Medevacs able to heal up this quite nicely, but again, with the extra Fungals, killing off a lot of that. Nicely done there by Darkforce, but a nice scam to be able to try and get a few of these infestors. Very, very costly for Darkforce as well. But right now, I mean, it's looking pretty good for Puma to be able to continue with this potential aggression.
See a Medevac from Puma, continuing to step forward, picked off the right expansion. Darkforce instantly re-expanding. Finally, with the Spires out, Darkforce is going to be able to answer, but those engagements at the front with all of those Banelings just costed him his entire army, and now Puma is actually going to be able to break into the back?
And kill the spawning pool, which is brutal. As well as, is he going to get the Ultra Cavern again? No, not just yet. Darkforce having none of that. 3rd time, that would have been very, very hard for Darkforce.
Now it does look like the big death army of Marine Marauder is threatening that left expansion. Puma's done kind of the unthinkable move and taken up the left and right expansion. Does look like Darkforce has built a backup pool at his natural, so he's doing quite comfortably there.
Yeah. Did indeed, as I guess he built that during the first initial drop that was thwarted. But
nice. The Ultralisk Cavern goes down again for the umpteenth time this game. Some Broodlings pop up. With the help of their Zergling buddies, remove that remaining threat. Puma now stepping forward with the big army at the left.
Puma looking forward to go for these Spine Crawlers here, and once he takes those down, there are a few Brood Lords here, but if he stims up and tries to take those out, he will get end up by fungals, so he needs to be very, very careful. Does take down the hatchery,
wow.
though. And now the Ultralisk stepping in to try and deal with this. They need to make something happen. They will kill off quite a bit of that bio, but there's just so many Marines in the back here.
Darkforce needs to get a mega fungal. There's a decent one. He needs another. He does manage to land that as well, but the Ultralisks slowly fall down to 0 health because they just don't have that chitinous plating upgrade. And Darkforce, who is at such a tremendous lead, just a staggering lead in this game, fell into some big miscontrols.
Yeah, Darkforce for now just trying to re-establish his defenses here. He's not actually mining from the base. So how many unit drones does he have? He has 50 currently to the 71 SCVs of Puma. And going to the income tab is a sorry sight for Darkforce right now, as Puma is almost tripling his income here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is an excruciating spot to be in as Darkforce, who was looking so good and so stable at the start of the game. Puma with these drops that didn't really do any damage but kept Darkforce pinned back, and now Darkforce can't even really establish control of an expansion, getting dropped at the right, and Puma has managed to edge his way into a good spot.
There's still so many fungals left here for Darkforce. He could just kill the rest of this Bioforce, but constantly losing these bases over and over means that he just cannot establish the economy to stay in this game. Right now, Puma is... Did I say Puma? I don't know. Pronunciation of Puma in English is very, very difficult, apparently. But anyway, for now, Darkforce just doesn't have any income. He's completely shut down.
Yeah, I mean, in the income tab, 500 and slowly dwindling down. And now we see the Vikings get absolutely brutalized with these pair of fungals, but it doesn't even matter. All the focus for Puma is on this rightmost expansion. With a pretty straightforward split, few Marines managed to die to those Banelings, and Puma weirdly pulled a win in this game, it looks like.
Yeah, there you go, GG. Darkforce falling down in the first game here of this best of 3. Puma did show some very, very nice colors there. Again, as we alluded to at the very start of the series, Puma's style is a very standard brand of Terran.
Yeah.
But you have a concerned look on your face there.
That game just was odd in a number of ways.
It did feel odd. It really did. It felt kind of slow motion. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that is a good word to describe it. I mean, Puma was just throwing away some pretty substantial armies in the mid-game.
Yeah.
In the typical way that Terran Berserk's going nowadays, the Terran player is just going insane, psychotic aggression on 3 bases.
Yeah.
And that's what's difficult for Zergs to deal with, because right when Zerg is trying to get the hive up, that's when all these attacks are barreling down your front door.
Yeah.
Puma couldn't even do that. He did these sort of like flaccid, unappealing drops that didn't do damage, but also prevented Darkforce from doing damage back.
Yeah, you're right.
And then somehow in one huge engagement with 13 siege tanks, Puma got an advantage.
Yeah, Darkforce just kind of threw everything into that. So, yeah, I think slow motion, and as we said before, it does reflect on that. If you're able to kill off the Ultralisk, Kevin, 3 times, then Zerg's never really able to gather that full momentum that they want in the later stages of the game. You just can't build Ultralisks. I don't know what to tell you. You just can't build them.
And it's just kind of funny to note that with the number of little wins that Puma was getting at those back doors, that it added up to some huge differences at the front. I mean, especially the chitinous plating, I think, as you were talking about frequently in the game.
Yeah, well, if it gets shut down, it gets shut down. But so we shall be moving on to game number 2 here in just a second. Interestingly enough, we're going to be seeing a new addition to the map pool here for the Intel Extreme Masters. It's going to be Mr. Day 9.
Atlantis spaceship. It's actually one of the GSL maps that some of you may have seen. If you haven't, don't worry. We'll be doing a little review of it at the start, but it's a large map, very gas-intensive map.
Yes.
And again, do you think that this is more comfortable for Darkforce's position?
Potentially, as we shall jump into the game here in just a second. And up to the top northern position, we do have ATN's Darkforce going to be spawning here as our blue Zerg.
And in the left spot, from Team Evil Geniuses, having a lot of time, or a lot of trouble putting results on the map as of late. Hopefully he can do it today. It's going to be Evil Geniuses Puma. Now, I think the most important feature of Atlantis spaceship is the fact that the mini-map looks like a teddy bear.
Yes, it does indeed.
Reaching its arms out to hug you.
Yeah, it's got those little paw things going on. It's cute.
There's the paw on the right and the paw on the left, and There's the eyes and the nose, and we have these little ears formed by the mineral patches. But I think most notably as a StarCraft 2 map, you'll see that there's this double gas expansion with an extra rich geyser. It can be easily taken down at the low ground. And there we also see that Puma just kind of going for a standard wall off. Given all these expansions that are kind of littering around the map, it's very, very easy to go into a long-term macro game.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that because I actually had a little bit of a hand in applying Atlantis Spaceship to the map pool, because I actually don't like Tal'Darim Altar anymore, and I was very, very adamant about that, hopefully not being in the map pool. But the way I see Atlantis Spaceship is a lot of Koreans, because of the GSL, have a lot of experience on it.
Yes.
And as such, I was assuming that a good amount of Koreans would end up, you know, maybe choosing the map, maybe not vetoing it as much as foreigners would, because we've only really seen it in, like, the IPL, for example. However, Puma is someone who doesn't have that much recent GSL experience. So that mechanism and that factor doesn't really play into it as much as it would do for, say, example, the MVPs, the STs, the people that are really kind of performing a lot there.
But it looks like Puma actually does have a little bit of a trick up his sleeve. I mean, despite that inexperience, he's going for the command center first, followed by gas geyser, followed by barracks. This is a very nice way to be able to get up a kind of fast factory with Hellion.
Yeah. Very, very much so. That's going to help him out in terms of going for that aggression. And, you know, again, Atlantis Spaceship is a big, wide open map with quite a few attack paths. So going for that kind of Hellion play, allowing yourself to have that mobility in the early game, maybe poke and prod a little bit here and there, just, it works really well to the map, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, especially on a map this huge, you have to have some way to control space that does well. And Darkforce, interestingly, also having another answer of his own. I'm going to be getting Zergling's speed up really early because I need some way to control space, because there's no way I'm going to be able to creep to this very far away third base.
Yeah, interestingly enough, he's leaving guys on gas. Oh no, there we go, pulling him off. Sorry, maybe I was a little bit over-eager with that. Let's just pull those guys off, and for now we have the factory on the way for Puma. So there's going to be a little bit of a Hellion versus Speedling war to begin with. So very, very standard here at this point.
Gosh, Puma's able to get this up so fast, this play. This is such an annoying thing to deal with. Now, granted, you're getting it so fast, you're kind of stunting your ability to do much else than Hellion Harass. If you see Hellions really early, for instance, you know that a very fast cloaked Banshee is difficult for a Terran player to be doing in that spot. So this can be a nice read for Darkforce in that position.
No, that's entirely true. Just the low Marine out right now for Puma, just going to be able to fend away that Zergling. Now, considering the positioning of the Marine and what Darkforce has actually scouted, do you think that he would assume that there is an expansion up there, or is that...
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and you see one single Marine. That's very, very uncommon. And look at this, an ultra-fast layer from Darkforce. This, I actually think, is a... super unusual and potentially very brilliant play by Darkforce. He's actually just going to be going straight up to Spire Tech.
I think, yeah, actually, no, you're right. Four gas guys is down. I was alluding to this Overlord in the back, maybe some kind of really, really strange Nidus play, but because there is quite a bit of surface area there.
That actually would work very nicely, just going for a huge Roach Nidus play, because if your opponent is going for this fast Hellion, the only reasonable follow-up he could be doing is a third command center.
So for now, it does have the command center on the way, as you like pointed out, and the Hellions are going to try and poke in here. One Queen to be able to fend that off. Second Queen going to poke, finish just as those guys arrive. But for now, the Hellions do have to fall back. But other than that, he's getting Marauders and Stim on the way here already. So looks like
no, gosh, Darkforce, you do see the layers up. Let's see what tech path he does decide to go for the Spire. So, I mean, this is not actually a very comfortable position to be in as Puma.
No, I mean, there's so much area on this map, and granted the mobility of the Mutalisks, I mean, in a similar way in which we were talking about the Hellions giving him some great map presence, you know, these Mutalisks are giving phenomenal presence here. So there's so much room that he can dive in and out of, and there's so much architecture to be able to exploit with that.
And now Darkforce, with the amount of gas that he has, he's going to be in just extremely happy condition. I mean, this third command center is actually probably going to have to be lifted and repositioned to a more comfortable spot. We have all these Hellions out to deal with a player who's going to be going Ling Baneling, who's going to be going Ling Infester, and nothing like that is actually going down. Though I will say I'm a little bit shocked to see the number of Zerglings out of Darkforce that we are seeing, but...
Stole my thought once again. It's very similar to game number 1 in terms of the amount of Zerglings he's building here. Like, at a 45 drone mark, and it's not really going to be able to do him too much, I don't think. I don't see where he's going to punish with it.
Well, it looks like the big opportunity for him is going to have to be right now. He has just now finished a Spire. There we see 3 Mutals coming down, but it looks like he decided to build another expansion in mid. Wow, and there's, oh, the Hellions just found exactly what they wanted to, these huge pack of Zerglings. Some big, big blast landed on him.
Now, from seeing what Puma has seen, does he then say, hey, why do you have so many Zerglings not really doing anything at the moment? Or does he continue just... Well, it looks like
he just attacks. I mean, that's the big thing. You're going to be able to do a lot of damage. The only thing you really got to worry about is that really nice surround. The Mutals are going to come in. Most of those Hellions, wow, every single Hellion is going to get demolished. And this is just going every way possible to Darkforce. And to answer your question, Killaris, once you've seen those Mutalists, now you suddenly go, no, and you start to go into all mad defense mode.
Yeah, too true. He's got some missile turrets on the way here, as well as some extra barracks being added on to be able to ramp up that marine production very, very quickly. Adding on even more gas guys is at this natural right now, but he hasn't. It's gonna be really hard for him to establish a third, I feel, here. I don't see how he's gonna be able to too easily.
Yeah, now we see that the Zerg player is even following up quite brilliantly by going pretty much abandoning of the Mutalist. He's going to be going for those melee upgrades, could easily go straight for a hive in this position. Yeah. Right now the game is in Darkforce's control, but I mean, look at Puma going into huge macro mode, adding on tons of barracks. So many. We'll have 1-1 finish soon. Couple of weird 1-1 timing pushes you can do, but Darkforce will almost certainly make Puma feel pinned.
Yeah, with such cool hooks on the way, those Banelings going to be able to connect pretty well, especially with the nice creep spread he's got going as well. And if he's able to just extend that a little bit further, as well as maybe even spread it around the edges of this fourth, then he can be able to defend this pretty easily. But at the same time, though, Puma just going to poke around here and there and try and establish himself his third. And again, it's kind of down the attack paths. He doesn't want to go for the base that's been blocked. Does he even know that it's being blocked is a question. Oh, he does now.
Yeah, I mean, I like this choice for Puma. It's an expansion that will pretty much dictate that you have to push up. It's very hard to push down and away from this entrance. So Darkforce taking the center of his own. I like this play quite a bit from Puma. Actually, does Puma know about the center expansion? Well, he's going to be very happy when he sees that's there, because it essentially means an extremely close attack path for Puma.
Yeah. And again, considering the architecture of it, there's like so much area you have to cover around it. It's very rare you see a base exposed 360 degrees. Like, there's no like, real architecture to be able to say, you know, like high ground architecture, for example, around it. So that can always be a bit difficult.
Darkforce now continuing to get pretty good set of expansions, but not really any use out of them yet. There's been no attempt to take gas. His drone count has stayed at 68. He hasn't really developed much of his infrastructure, just getting some Mutalists and then halting that in favor of Ling Baneling. So Darkforce, again, has to do some sort of big play with gas at some point, but I mean, he has everything there except the drones and the gas geysers.
That is true. That is very, very true indeed. And it's always nice to get those gas geysers going as quickly as possible as a Zerg. Right now, the Mutalists just keep continuing to shark around, but realistically, they've not done too much in terms of direct damage. They've only slightly pinned Puma back, but he's now attempting to go for some harassment and drop up to the north here, killing off maybe 1 or 2 Overlords. The Zerglings are on the way to deal with it.
I honestly think that this is one of the tough decisions in the mid-game. When you're up against a Mutalisting player, you can drop in places to help pull his Zerglings into the wrong position. Or, you know, pull the Mutalists into the wrong position. But Darkforce, I think, had a very clear decision to kill that off with Mutalists, to defend with his Ling Baneling. But instead, we see this medevac is still alive, and Darkforce is about to take some huge damage.
Oh, maybe so indeed, as the Drop unloads once again here. The Zerglings though, and Baneling's going to flood into the front here. Nice Marine splits at the back, and nice Marine positionings. And then Baneling's not going to be able to connect with them just yet. There's not that many Banelings left over here. Marines continuing to split back, and he will be able to clean up the rest of them, but there's still plenty of reinforcements on the way.
Oh, Puma, with his trademark incredible control, is going to get plenty of free Mutalisks, and meanwhile on the main base, that drop is dealing all the damage that it needs to help Puma get a huge lead after this exchange is said and done. And it looks like Darkforce, in a couple of moments, thought, oh yeah, I'm going to be completely safe, and just went ahead and resent his drones back to mine. But look at Puma's classic excellent micro.
And positioning throughout those mineral lines, so annoying for Zerglings. You see it time and time again in this matchup. Really needs to send like a little pack of Zerglings around the back to be able to deal with that. But now the Marines are still alive, and look at this Puma going for another push at the 4th.
Gosh, just, I mean, as painful as it is to lose one of these expansions, Darkforce still hasn't begun mining gas out of any of his extra expansions. He's just sticking to 4 gas, Kalaris.
Yep, that can always be a little bit brutal for him. As right now, Puma has been able to traverse himself forward around 20 or 30 supplies. So for Darkforce, that's getting a little bit scary. You never really want to be in this position. And he's going to go for the push once again. He needs to break this, apparently, as he does get a little bit of a nice round on 1 or 2 of these siege tanks. But the Baneling's not really connecting with as many Marines as they would like to.
There's a lack of comfort with Darkforce's play right now. He was looking just great in the early and mid game of that last match, but here it looks like, oh, all the Zerglings streaming in will be almost enough to help defray this push, but not quite. And with all those Marines darting forward, Marines versus Mutalisks without anything to reinforce is going to be a one-sided battle, to say the least. Darkforce losing the center expansion. Puma comfortably established his own center expo, and with Puma just rallying, building Thors, everything he needs to, Darkforce is going to have a hard time holding on for much longer.
Yeah, Puma behind this. There's a 4th base on the way, and it's actually in a position where he can just, there you go, though, guys.
There's GG.
Wowzers. Puma playing very, very well in this best of 3. Darkforce not really able to attain the pace that he needed to throughout this best of 3 series.
Yeah, and I mean, just some oddness. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, if you're playing Zerg,
there's a sense of bewilderment about it in comparison to the... I mean, there was a sense of bewilderment about the 2nd series that we had, but that was for a different reason. Those games were just off the hook.
Yeah. I mean, just a weird set of things that went on in those first 2 games, where in game number 1, Puma having this complete defensive passivity in the mid-game, unable to really get into a decent position. Then in game number 2, Darkforce taking no extra gas geysers, period. I mean, I love the way that Darkforce opened those ultra-fast Mutalisks, destroyed those Hellions, put Puma on the defense, but then took freaking no gas geysers, man.
Frickin' no gas geysers.
Frickin' geysers,
indeed. As, well, Puma will advance on. So commendations to him as he moves through that bracket.